Hi, welcome to another craft video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'm Cheryl and I teach the craft classes at the main library. Today we are doing our fourth video in our jewelry making series. In the first video we talked about the tools and findings that you would need to create jewelry. In the second video we did these simple dangle bead earrings. In the third video we made a matching chain necklace. And in the fourth video today, we're going to be making a matching ring using simple wire wrapping techniques. Let me get this put aside and we'll get started. The first thing you're going to need is a piece of wire about a foot long. We are using 22 gauge wire. And remember from the other videos, gauge is the size of the wire. The bigger the number, the smaller the wire. So 22 gauge is a fairly thin but not flimsy wire. It's good for using to make rings with small delicate beads. If you have bigger chunky beads and you want to make a more dramatic statement ring, I would suggest going to a 20 gauge wire. It's a little bit more thick and a little bit sturdier. Also, if you tend to knock your rings a lot, you might want to go with the 20 gauge just for a little more secure purposes. So, we've got 22 gauge wire. I've got some beads that match my earrings and necklace. You're also going to need a set of needle nose pliers and some wire cutters. And then you'll need something to wrap the wire around to create the ring. I have this specially dedicated ring mandrel. It's made specifically for the purpose of making rings. It has the ring sizes listed. These can be bought off of Amazon. A ring mandrel and a set of measuring rings can be bought for $10 to $15. Not too big of a deal, but if you don't want to make that investment or you don't know if you're going to be making a lot of rings, you can look around your house and see if you have anything else that you can use similarly. I have these two makeup brushes that I use sometimes, and you'll see they're very similar to the ring mandrel, and they're about the same size in the area where I need to make rings. What you'll need to do is, if you do not know the size, you can take a ring that you know fits and measure it where you want to make the ring. So this is an 8.5 size. Although I'm not going to use the wire wrapped around the 8.5. In the process of making the ring, it tends to get about half a size smaller. So if my ring is 8.5, I'm going to want to start out with the wire wrapped around the size 9. You can do this same thing on one of these brushes. Put it down there. I like to wrap a piece of masking tape around there, put it down, and then mark it with a Sharpie marker. And remember, about a 1/4 of an inch larger than what you are going to want to end up with. So I would mark it right there. You can also go to the hardware store and buy wooden dowel rods. They're very inexpensive. You can buy them in several different diameters to make different rings sizes with, and they're reusable. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is take the wire, generally find right about center point, and then I'm going to go a little bit off, and I'm going to use my thumbnail and make a nice tight kind of a 45-degree angle, as you can see there. Then I'm going to thread the beads onto the longer side. And as I said in previous videos, you always want to check to make sure the holes in the beads you've chosen are big enough to fit the wire that you need to put through it. It's no use falling in love with a design and then trying it out and going to make it and realizing that the holes are too small and you can't do it. Always check beforehand. Alright, so I've got it threaded up onto there. Now I'm going to make another little sharp corner right at the other end so that I have it like this. This is just to try and hold the beads in place as I'm working with them. So I'll take the ring mandrel. I'm going to put this on here, and remember I want this to be 8.5, so I'm going to put it at the 9. Another reason I'm ring mandrel, some of the ring mandrels have these little grooves to help you kind of hold the wire in place. And I'm holding it with my 2 fingers, firmly grasping it, with the wire coming off the bottom. Now I'm going to take one wire and I'm going to bring it around and up on the right hand side and kind of tuck it as close under the beads as I can. Now I'm going to switch hands. I'm going to take the other one the other way and go on the left side and tuck it under the beads as much as I can. This may be a little awkward at first. You'll find yourself losing your grip or it's sliding around. It's just a matter of practice. It does get easier. Alright, so I have the beads with the wire coming off the front and the back. Now what I'll do is I'll bring this, pulling it snugly, and I'm going to wrap this around, continuing the same direction, and put it on that side. I'll want to switch hands and I'll do the other wire the same way. This was the other wire, so I'm going to bring it around. So I've just kind of swirled them around in a clockwise motion. You may find, depending on how you pull the wires and whether you're left or right-handed, you may find yourself automatically going clockwise or counterclockwise. It doesn't matter as long as they're all going the same way and it's swirling around and grabbing it. Now, I'm going to need to pinch some of the wires with my needle nose pliers, but while I'm doing this, I'm going to try and keep it in place. I'm going to take it and flip it over and put a little piece of tape on the back to try and just help me hold it in place. Okay. All right, now I want these wires here, instead of being so rounded, I need them pinched and flattened to hold the beads in place. So I'm going to hold it with one hand and try and grab this with the needle nose pliers and give it a little squeeze, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be completely flat, just a little squeeze. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And this may take a couple of attempts before your pliers grip it instead of sliding off. There we go. I think that'll work. So I'm going to take the tape off and slide this off here. So this is what we've got. Now we're going to make sure we bring those wires underneath the beads. And we're going to need to wrap these around and around the outside part of the ring. I'll show you what I've done here. As you can see, this is what it's going to look like. Now this is just a little too long to work with, so we're going to cut it down to be about an inch to an inch and a quarter. So about that long is comfortable for me. Now remember from the other videos, whenever you're cutting wire, always hold it with a couple of fingers or put your hand over it so that the wire doesn't go flying. Do the same thing on the other side. Now, we're going to wrap it around. If the wire is on the back of the ring, you'll bring it forward and wrap it through the ring and coil it nice and tightly. Then you're going to do it one more time, trying to keep the coil all together and not spread out. I'm going to cut off that remaining piece, and you're going to want to stop on the outside. So take your wire cutters and find the flat side. Get it as close as you can to the ring. Cover it so it doesn't go flying. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Coil it through. This is the point where your ring gets a half a size smaller because of your coiling up near the top. This is why you need that extra half a size built in. Okay, cut that off. Alright, so you're left with a little bit of a pokey piece. What you'll need to do is take your needle nose pliers and you're going to need to flatten that. But you don't want to just squish it flat because that will spread it a little bit. You want to wrap it as you're flattening it. So apply gentle pressure, and as you squeeze, kind of pull it around and then flatten. And then test it to see if any of it still scratches. And I think that's okay. So I'll do this side. Flatten gently as I pull. That's still pokey. I think I'm going to try and cut off just a tiny bit more. Using just the tip. That's better. You never want to finish with the end of the wire on the inside of the ring, because if there's any piece that might be a little scratchy, it's going to be rubbing right up against your finger, and that's going to irritate it. It's better for it to be on the outside. Then if your ring has gotten misaligned, if you've squeezed it too hard, you might find it is kind of an oval shape. You can always take your ring mandrel or other thing and just kind of push it down and twist it around to kind of put it back into circular. Then you try on your ring. And there we go. Now don't worry if the sides are completely perfect. It doesn't matter. This part underneath, people are not going to be looking at it. You really don't see that when you're just looking at the ring. So don't worry if the sides are a little bit wonky. It comes with practice getting better. But nobody's going to notice anyway. So there's my matching ring. Thanks for viewing another one of our craft videos. We'll see you next time from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'm Cheryl. Have a good day.